Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to Coffee Talk! So today we're going to talk about the return of the gods. We're talking about the pre-flood gods today. Now, I don't talk a lot about the end times in the sheep pen ministry. I talk more about practical applications of spiritual warfare and life as a Christian. But on Coffee Talk, we talk about things we find interesting but don't necessarily believe. I can't hang my hat on these theories, but I do like talking about them. So the big question that I think needs to be answered, that isn't really answered in the Bible, is why does Christ return? What is his purpose for returning? What causes or triggers his intervention in the world? And why the world seems to be destroyed according to the book of Revelation and also Matthew 24. And so that brings me to the scripture in Matthew 24, where Jesus' disciples on the Mount of Olives ask him, what are the signs of the end of the age and your second coming and the end of the age? And, in that, he says a statement. He says, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. And then he goes on to talk about how during the flood, people were completely unaware of the coming destruction until the floods washed them away. And most theologians will say that that's what he meant by as in the days of Noah, that it's going to be a surprise that no one sees coming. But a lot of the end time people, a lot of the people that talk about giants and the pre-flood and the ancient gods, they say that means more than that. So I'm going to suspend disbelief and agree with them and say, okay, so what if Jesus was talking about the entirety of the days of Noah, not just the concept that it's going to be a surprise when all of this happens, but like it was in the days of Noah, but the days of Noah are repeating. And that is why the second coming must occur. This is why God must intervene and take charge of the earth once again. Because just like in the days of Noah, things have gone sideways. And so let's look into that. What was going on in the days of Noah? Well, we know one major thing from Genesis 6, that the sons of God, the Elohim, or the sons of Elohim, the people call them fallen angels, came to earth and took wives and interbred with human beings and created a hybrid offspring that were referred to as giants or men of renown. And that's pretty much the extent of the discussion in the book of Genesis in the Bible. Then we also have giants reoccurring after the flood in the Promised Land, which was occupied by giants. And apparently they grew giant fruit as well, because they were grapes the size of basketballs, that kind of thing. And so the land of fruit and honey, as it referred to, the Promised Land in the Bible, was already occupied by surviving giants. And so a lot of people that follow this or get deeply into the discussion and study of giants, men of renown, or some people call them the gods of old, the titans, as it were, from Greek and Roman mythology. They basically say that that is the reason for the flood. And there is some more substantiating evidence. It is morning here. I need some more coffee. To support that is that there's a statement about Noah, why Noah was chosen to be saved when the rest of the world was destroyed. Why did God pick Noah? It said that Noah was pure in his generations. And, I've heard that say, well, he was free from sin. He lived a holy life. That's not what that word generations means. It literally means genetic. It means he was genetically pure. He was 100% unadulterated human. Now, that's what we have from the Bible itself. That before the flood, there were these hybrid giants, and most of, if not all of the population was in some way contaminated genetically, and that Noah was the only person that was pure in his generation, or in his genealogy, his genetics. And so what we have going on at the time then is a change in humanity that caused all humanity to become wicked. Now, we can leave the Bible there and go to the next best thing, the book of Enoch. In the book of Enoch, we have a clear indicator that these giants were oppressing the earth, that they were in control of everything, and they were using up the earth and its population. And in some tellings, we even have them feasting on humans and using them as food like cattle, right? And so we have this picture of before the flood, of depravity and wickedness and these hybrid alien God creatures roaming the earth and messing everything up for the rest of us, okay? Now, if we leave that and go then to every single indigenous and ancient people's writings, storytellings, and history, we have a similar story. That there were these giants, some of them giant humans, some of them interbred or crossbred with animals. So we have like the centaur and the, and the not the Pegasus, but Pan is part goat, part human. We have all these gods that are either great big Goliath type human beings with potentially superpowers or technology. Thor and his hammer, the trident of Poseidon's pitchfork that shot laser beams. We have all of this from Greek mythology. If you go into the Indian history of India, you end up with Vermana, flying machines. If you go into Persian and Arabic tales, we have flying carpets. So there was technology combined with biological manipulation, okay, or genetic manipulation. So you have a world filled with monsters, giants, and advanced technology, flying machines, flying carpets, spaceships, airplanes, helicopters, hovering flying machines, and a myriad of other types of things that were told as being magical, but in fact look a lot like technology. So you got the changing of the human species into something that God didn't create. You've got hybrid animal humans going around doing all kinds of atrocities. If you get deeper into some of the Native American lore and some other African tales, you hear of flying serpents, dragons, who taught people in the methods of sorcery and magic. And you have a lot of human sacrifice and that sort of thing going on at that time. It seems to me that the gods required you to bring them your daughters, or to bring them a meat sacrifice, or to bring them a money sacrifice. And in turn, it kind of sounds like, the mafia, right? They would come up and say, you need fire insurance. And you would be like, I have fire insurance. And you'd be like, yeah, but you need insurance that a fire won't happen. So it's that kind of extortion, that if you don't want your crops to be destroyed, if you don't want your land to be ravaged, then you'll bring us an offering and we'll prevent this from happening. And that seems to be a theme throughout the ancient writings, that these gods with a little g, these men of renown, these giants, these monsters in the world, were very much taking advantage of humankind, enslaving them, feasting upon them, and ruling over them with an iron fist. Hang on, I gotta yell at my dog. Had to yell at Radar. It's Saturday morning and we're getting an unusual amount of traffic. It's got my dogs worked up. So you start to see this picture of what the world was like before the flood and why God had to intervene. And now let's bring it up to current day. Why would God have to intervene again? Well, because we're coming into a situation that's starting to look like the days of Noah. People are altering their bodies to resemble animals, people identifying as snakes and dogs and all other kinds of things, and having surgery to change their bodies. You've got people changing their genders. You've got, you have lawlessness in the land. You have the beginnings of another round of slavery. One might say taxation is a form of slavery. Extortion, pay your dues or go to prison, right? We're starting to see a breakdown in society, a breakdown in the family. The medical technology is getting to the point where they're talking about altering genetics at birth or pre-birth. You can get to where you can decide what eye color, hair color is going on. And then we won't even get into the discussion of what's happening in secret laboratories around the world where they're crossing humans and animals. And then let's look at the UFOs, or now they're calling them UAPs, right? UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon, or unidentified, I don't know. UAP, the UFO, whatever you want to call them, spacemen. Then there's this footage from down in Peru where you've got 7-foot tall aliens engaging in skirmishes with local remote tribal people, rural people, and some grainy video has come back from some of that. We've got the government now coming out and saying that aliens are real. There's the concept of there could be an alien invasion coming, and that we're preparing for an alien invasion. And it's starting more and more to where the advance of technology. Tell me this, how is it we've gone from the horse and buggy days to the internet age in literally one lifetime? My grandma was born in the horse and buggy days, and she passed away in the internet age at 105. And in that 105 years, humanity has taken such a leap forward that one must start to wonder whether these UFOs and aliens have something to do with it. And now you've got whistleblowers coming out in front of Congress recently saying that yes, we have some of these alien crafts. Yes, we have backwards engineered the technology. Yes, we have hovering flying machines of the flying saucer sort. Yes, a lot of this technology that you enjoy today we got from the aliens and the harvested technology from these crashed crafts. Is this a return of the gods? Will we see aliens coming out? Will we see aliens marrying our supermodels and creating offspring? This used to be something that seemed absolutely absurd, but in the day and time we live in, the absurd seems to be becoming normal, and all the conspiracy theories are coming true. Are we looking at a time that looks very much like the days of Noah? We don't know much about that time, other than there were these people that came from, this is interesting, they either descended from the sky, according to folklore and tale of the ancient days, or they came through a spiral vortex in the sky. How many of you have been seeing what appears to be spiral vortexes in videos? They're greatly suppressed. A lot of people blow them off as some kind of computer-generated images, but there are people reporting seeing these swirling spiral vortexes in the sky. And, well, what does the Bible say about that? Jacob wrestled with an angel, and he saw a thing called Jacob's ladder. And he said it was a transportation device in the sky, and angels were ascending and descending and ascending through a thing that he called a ladder. Was he seeing the spiral vortex? Was he seeing an interdimensional portal being opened up, and non-human entities, non-earthly entities ascending and descending to this earth? Is that something that's happening again now? Then you got to ask the question, did we start all this by trying to find the God, what do they call it, the God particle at CERN in Switzerland? Did we open up some kind of vortex, some kind of stargate that allowed these demons to come in? And then I've talked in previous videos about how some of the giants may have survived by going deep underground. They may have survived the flood. There could be an advanced civilization that is under the earth, that surfaces, as it were, in the end times. But I do believe that Jesus was talking about how the world, according to the way the world is seen, or the way the world is at the time of his second coming, is like the days of Noah. And we know in the days of Noah that we have all this stuff going on. There's giants, men of renown, there's crossbred humans with animals, There's all kinds of sorcery, magic, potentially high technology going on as well. And all of that seems to be coming around again, for the last, however long since the flood, 6,000 years since the flood, that humanity has pretty much survived the same way. There hasn't been any great technological advances until recently. So this sorcery, this technology magic has come back around again, and I can see how it could develop into something like this. What if the aliens that are flying these saucers around, that our government has finally admitted this is happening, they're not of earthly origin, it's not human technology, and brace yourself, because it's getting more and more frequent, and contact is inevitable if it hasn't already occurred. There's the whole theory that we made a deal with them to receive this technology. This technology isn't just from salvaged craft, it's traded. Just like we traded with the ancient gods, we gave them our daughters. Think about all of the missing children. Where are they at? When I was a kid, if a kid went missing, it made national or international news. That kids didn't disappear. Families could let their kids run wild in the street, run wild in the country, ride their bikes all day, and never worry about your child disappearing. But now we have disappearing kids. Not only that, we have the 411 disappearances in the wilderness, where people go out in the wilderness and something happens. They get snatched up. Is it an alien abduction? Or are we allowing these gods with a little g that have returned to have access as payment for the technology? Are we paying for the technology in the lives of our children? That's another thing that was prevalent in ancient times. Children were not seen as valuable. They were routinely given up for human sacrifice. The attitude was children were a commodity, not a gift from God. And they weren't sacred in any way, and you could just sacrifice your kids for better crops next year. Hey, you can have more kids. That was the ancient world and the way they viewed children. And so the big question is, are we returning to that? Abortion is seen as a person's right to kill their unborn child, and now they've extended that right up until the moment of birth. That instead of giving birth to a live baby, they kill the baby and have them give birth to a dead baby up to the day of birth. And some people are fighting for that right, saying it's their right to do it. And there are those out there that see this as some kind of spiritual sacrifice, potentially to these alien gods. This is not something that was prevalent since the Roman Empire, which brings me to Jesus' first coming. I believe that you had a second resurgence in these fallen angels about the time of Christ. That you start to see in the Roman Empire such a dedication to these alien gods, that child sacrifice was a big thing, that there are mass graves. They weren't even graves. People would give birth to children that they didn't want and just toss them over a wall into a pile alive and let them die. And there's these piles of human remains of babies born in the Roman Empire. And that the Roman Empire sacrificed people for sport in the Colosseum. That they turned wild animals loose on human beings and watched them be shredded to pieces for sport and entertainment. So Jesus came, I think, as an answer to, part of it was as an answer to, and to rise up the church in combating against these evil aliens. And in places where the church wasn't present, you have a resurgence of the giant story. There's two incursions, according to certain Native American histories, that there were people, giants, that came either through these vortexes or descended from the heavens, or in some cases came up from under the ground. And there was one round, and they were all destroyed in a global flood, presumably, and then they came back many thousands of years later. And those people, those aliens or gods, or what do you want to call them, giants, they were essentially hunted by the human beings in a war, in a battle. You have this in the tales of the Anasazi. You have this in other Native American tales, where these red-headed giants down in Patagonia, where they were cannibalistic, and they preyed upon the people, and the indigenous tribes rose up and fought them in a physical war. And then, but the church seems to have driven back this demonic activity. And that's because of Jesus. So Jesus bought us a couple more thousand years. And if you know my doctrine and theology as a Christian, you know that I believe that the big part of the second coming of Christ is to save the pure of heart, the good people who have not bent a knee to the demon alien gods. We have not accepted these false gods, and we refuse to. And so Jesus comes back before the total destruction to save those of us who will not bend a knee, right? Those of us who will rather be martyred than to give in to this evil energy of these alien gods. Is that what is happening? Is this a good speculation that we have this repeating problem of these demons, gods with a little g, giants, titans, whatever you want to call them? They do have one thing in common. They really don't care about humanity. They just want what they can get, and they use humanity mercilessly. All of the gods in Greek and Roman sorry to say theology, but Roman mythology, and depends on how you look at it, right? That these ancient gods, these monsters, they had little care for human beings, and they just saw them as basically cattle, as assets, and they had no love in their heart for humanity at all. And so, is that what we're seeing with the aliens? Are the aliens simply the return of the gods? And is it this return of the aliens that's going to trigger Christ's return and his saving of the remnant of people who do not join in the madness? And, this is very different than the Jewish-based ideology of modern Christian churches. Blood redemption, saving of souls. Not to say that isn't true. I'm not throwing shade on that at all. I'm just saying this ideology is something you might say on top of or in addition to that doctrine and theology. That the rapture isn't about saving souls as much as it's about saving human beings from this onslaught of evil. The beast, the beast of Revelation starts to look like an alien. And it does say that he was empowered by an alien god or a strange god in the Bible. There's references to this beast end time character that seems to imply that he is either not of this earth or he is empowered by entities that are not of this earth. So non-human entities. Are we going to be looking at a future where a political leader or religious leader like the Pope decides that these gods are in fact the good guys? They might come, as the Bible says, disguised as angels of light, coming here with all the answers to human woes, cures for diseases, but at what price? Cure for hunger and starvation and famine, but at what price? To bring peace to the earth, but at what price, right? And, people will probably willingly bend down and bow down and take a knee to these entities and, go, okay, I get it. God has come back to earth. The gods have returned. And this is the replacement Christ. This is the fake second coming of Jesus. These aliens will come back and say, hey, we're the gods of old. We sent Jesus to teach you all peace. And, they're going to preach peace, but I believe that destruction and war and death is going to be the actual outcome of all of this. So it's a great theory. I need some coffee to swallow it. But if you look at the book of Revelation, it starts to look like that. I mean, you've got flying monsters that look like scorpions with stings in their tails. You've got angels, fallen angels, demons being released from a bottomless pit to wreak havoc on the earth. Fallen angels that were held under the Euphrates River in chains are released. And it doesn't really go into how they were released or who released them, but the chaos erupts once they've been released. Is this the underground aliens? the underground gods with a little g who survived the flood by going into the internal hollow earth, and they're going to come to the surface now to take charge? Is this combined with these spacecraft? Do these spacecraft come from another dimension? Do these spacecraft come from outer space? Or do they come from inside the earth? Or is it a combination of both? Will we see spiral vortexes opening up and dragons flying into our world? All of this seems crazy, but the Bible does say, as in the days of Noah, and if you read the ancient stories of the pre-flood gods, that all of this was reality. Dragons predatorized humans, burned down villages. Half human, half animal gods went around hunting human beings and putting them into slavery and putting them in dungeons. You've got Vermana, flying machines, wars between these gods with lightning bolts and laser beams and explosions. You've got whole continents being driven into, being turned into deserts, being completely destroyed and depleted of natural resources. You see cannibalism running wild, human sacrifice being the norm. And this is why God destroyed the earth and spared Noah. And so are we going to see a future where people alter their DNA through technology or interbreed with alien species to create hybrids, and there will only be a handful of us who say no, who stay true to our human nature and stay true to the God of creation? And only those of us who do that will live to see the last day. What do you think? Am I way out there? I know this is a coffee talk. This is for getting way out there. Do you think there were giants in the old days? Do you think the gods of the ancient Athenians and Greco-Roman gods were actually real? Do you think Atlantis was a real society of high technology ran by these gods with a little g? And then there's the big question. What about Nibiru, Planet X? The concept that there's a planet on a 10 to 16,000 year cylindrical orbit where it leaves our solar system and goes way out into the galaxy, or into space, and makes it back, and that this return of the gods is because these gods occupy this planet that's hurtling through space that only comes around every few thousand years. Are we going to see a return of the gods, a return of this tyranny, a return of this predation of human beings? Are we looking at the second coming of Christ being a rescue mission to save us from these invading enemies? Are we about to have an intergalactic war? Are we about to be invaded by aliens? Is that why they're finally telling us that the UFOs are real and alien abduction is real, and this technology didn't come from human beings, this technology I'm using to speak to you, this technology that comes out of nowhere after thousands of years of basic human living, suddenly I'm speaking to the entire planet through a device I can hold in the palm of my hand. Don't. It's got to be something, because it just ain't normal, I can tell you that much. So tell me what you think. Also, I got my blue check mark on Twitter. So if you want to hear me talk about politics and our battle with other humans over control of our country, then you'll want to jump over there on Twitter, now called X. So if you're looking for Twitter, I think it's now called X. Although my stuff still says Twitter on my app. Maybe I need to upload the freshest app. I don't know. But nonetheless, I'm on there. I got my blue check mark. Thanks to those who contributed to the financial requirements for that so I could pay for it. I got approved, and now it's weird. Twitter or X is really weird. This technology is crazy. But I can actually argue with Stephen King, which I've been doing. I've been arguing with Stephen King. And I can make friends with Randy Quaid. That's right. Cousin Eddie himself and I have been instant messaging. We've been talking. I've been talking to Cousin Eddie. Can you believe that? He's on our side. I used to call him crazy, but people called me crazy, and all of us that have been labeled as crazy are suddenly going to be viewed as the people who had it figured out all along. Well, I'm out of time. I'm out of coffee. I do want to encourage you to support this channel. I do not monetize my videos. Any money I receive to live on comes exclusively from donors like you. And I do appreciate anything you can do to help me out. There's a link in the description to PayPal, to Cash App. I got a P.O. box if you want to write me a letter or send me some coffee. So, buy me a cup of coffee, one way or the other. If you just want to tip me, if you want to become a supporter of the channel because you agree with my religious teachings that I have in the sheep pen portion of what I do on YouTube, please contribute. I want to thank all of you who do support this channel because I have coffee and I have air conditioning and I have lights on here and gas for my car and food in my belly because of you. And you listening to God when He prompts you to take care of me. So thank you all for taking care of me. And I will keep pumping out the videos. And now that I got my blue check mark, I'm going to make some videos over on Twitter where I can tell them what I really think. Because here on YouTube, I have to be so careful. I have to play by the rules or they're going to put me in YouTube jail. Over there on Twitter, it's a free-for-all. Or on X, I guess. As in X, like it used to be Twitter. The platform formerly known as Twitter, okay? Checking me out over there. I got about 123 followers, I think, today, and we just keep chunking that number higher and higher, and a lot of them are new that don't even watch the channel. So if you're a channel viewer and you want to see the old Sage Wanderer, jump over there to Twitter. There's a link in the description to my Twitter page as well, or my X page, whatever you want to call it, and we'll see you next time on Coffee Talk!